Hi, my name is Spiro, and this video presentation is on leveling. Let me start by saying that the leveling feature is perhaps the most powerful of all features in Microsoft's portfolio and project management solution, and perhaps the most underutilized. I will even venture to say that it holds the key to unlocking and unleashing the potential that this solution has to offer. Unfortunately, I've even heard instructors say that it doesn't work. Well, let me respond to this by saying that this is rubbish. Anyone who says that just doesn't know how to use it or how it works. In this video, I'll be showcasing the leveling feature. I hope by the end of this video to make you a believer. So in a few minutes, I will show you how you can optimize your use of the solution and do so effectively. And just imagine the benefits that you and your organization could gain by applying not only leveling, but all the tips and tricks that I provide you in my videos. If I can help you increase your overall efficiency in delivering your projects within your portfolio by even just a few percentage points, how much of a saving or benefit would that represent to you? You can quickly realize that the worth of making an investment in this solution and some good practices speak for themselves. So what is leveling? Leveling is applied when we want to normalize the workload of one or more resources in our resource pool that is overallocated. That is, to put it simply, the resources assignments exceeds their availability. We typically resort to leveling when there are more than just a few resource overallocations. When there are only a few overallocations, we can usually manage those manually using either the resource allocation view, team planner, or even time phase views. This video goes beyond leveling manually or using the available to work option in the assign resources window that helps us avoid overallocations when scheduling. Is there a problem with overallocating resources? Well, there could be. At times, when we need our project teams to roll up their sleeves and get us out of a jam, asking them to put a little overtime in is not unheard of. Doing so for short periods of time is bearable, but doing so over long stretches of time will not be. Projects and organizations will suffer if they operate in such a manner. People will simply burn out. And if they lack job satisfaction, they will seek other opportunities, especially if there's no sense of accomplishment, improvements, and/or change in the status quo. It does not matter how good your portfolio and/or your project management solution is, or how great looking or powerful the reports are that you can pull from it, if you don't address overallocated resources. You will have resources that are overcommitted. That is, they are stretched. And when resources are stretched, well, you know what happens. They risk and fail to meet their commitments. And if those commitments are critical commitments, it will put the portfolio at risk. And we all know how important it is to keep to our commitments, our promises. It is a matter of trust and integrity, which is the basis for our relationships, including that of our customers whose business we seek to support, and our teams who are integral to the success of our organizations. In summary, we need our project plans to be realistic and attainable. Leveling can help us do this. When we encounter an overallocation situation, leveling will cause the end dates of the task to be delayed to where the resource or resources have availability. Delaying a task is not as bad as it may sound, especially if the task or task is not critical, meaning it has no impact on the overall project or deliverable. On the other hand, if the task is critical and it gets delayed, well, at least we know that we have a situation and that we need to take corrective action. Example, replacing the overallocated resource with one that is available, or it may simply be a question of authorizing some overtime. One thing we want to avoid is building a schedule in the planning phase with overtime. Doing so may require even more to be added during the execution phase of the project. So, where does leveling fit in the overall scheme of things? Well, leveling is not a one-time deal. It will typically be performed during the planning phase and during the execution, or shown here as the manage phase within the project's lifecycle. In the planning phase, we probably have limited resources, and so the leveling feature can assist us in determining the delivery dates which are realistic and that we can comfortably commit to. In the manage phase, if we do not achieve the progress that we had planned and scheduled, we will or could eventually face an overallocation situation, especially if we need to keep to our delivery dates. That is, trying to squeeze out more time from your team members in smaller and smaller time frames, which will definitely cause an overallocation situation, and/or our assigned team members begin to overlap on commitments made on other projects. Also, at the organizational level, new opportunities and other commitments could and most likely will be introduced into the portfolio at any time. This most likely will have an impact on your ongoing projects. We need to be able to support the organization and quickly assess, review, and report on the impacts and the changes that are required to accommodate change in direction and/or strategy. Folks, I'm here to tell you that all this is possible with PPM, and leveling is the key to enabling you and your enterprise to gain a competitive advantage by knowing how to leverage a solution, by being able to quickly adapt to change. Let's jump in here now and see the leveling functionality. But first, a few simple prerequisites. The schedule must be fluid. This means that if we delay tasks and have them move into the future, they should be able to do so unencumbered. That means minimizing or even avoiding dependencies such as must start on, etc. Start no earlier and using deadlines works nicely. The network of dependencies should be complete. Leveling delays upstream should allow updates to the downstream activities through the network of dependencies. Many at times, I see schedules that use and set dependency types other than finish to start incorrectly, thus short-circuiting the fluidity of the schedule. Yet another prerequisite is know and set your project priorities within your portfolio, especially before leveling between projects. Your initiation process should include priority ranking of your projects. In this way, you can get on with a job of leveling rather than debating and trying to sort out who has priority over whom in terms of projects. Priorities can also be leveraged at the task level, as we will see shortly. Task level priorities can be used to influence the outcome of the leveling operation. For instance, when we have parallel activities scheduled within a sprint, as in the case with an agile project. Another important thing is, don't assign or force your resource assignment units above their maximum on any given task. Apply overtime should be used instead. If not, leveling will not work. I see this bad habit more often than not. Open the projects that you wish to perform leveling on. So if you wish to manage the overallocation of a program, then open all the project files accordingly in Microsoft Project Professional or Project Pro for Office 365. All other project files will not be impacted. As such, existing project files that are not open during your leveling operation will automatically have the highest priority. It's like setting their priority value to 1,000, which means that they won't be touched. I will talk about priority setting in more detail later. Of course, through a network of task dependencies, any leveling delays upstream may have an impact on your downstream projects. There's a video on my YouTube channel that addresses external dependencies and deliverables in more detail if you have not seen it yet. Oh, and one last prerequisite for leveling. Don't set logical dependencies between your tasks to avoid overallocations. Use the leveling feature instead. Now, let's turn to Microsoft Project and have a look at the leveling functionality. There are several indicators in Microsoft Project that alerts us to an overallocation situation. The resource-related views display resources that are overallocated in red and show a yellow diamond in the indicators column. Task-related views have a red body icon in the indicators column for tasks with resources that have overallocations. And the team planner puts a red outline around the tasks where the resource is overallocated. The resource allocation view is provided right out of the box, so to speak, which is helpful when leveling. This is a combination view with the resource usage view on the top and the leveling Gantt at the bottom. In the resource usage view, given that it is a resource-related view, shows overallocated resources in red, and the time phase value displayed to the right of the splitter bar, also in red, where the workload exceeds availability. There's even the time-phased overallocated field that indicates the amount of overallocated time by period that can be inserted. The leveling Gantt below is a task-related view, and as such will display the task with overallocated resources in the indicators column with a red body. The table associated to the leveling Gantt is called delay, and as such has the field titled leveling delay. This is the field that Microsoft Project uses to delay tasks, and as such we could use it if we choose to manually level tasks to manage our overallocations. Note on the right side of this view we have a Gantt bar representation of our tasks, and if a task has slack, in which case it's not critical. So, if we had to choose between delaying a critical task versus a non-critical task, we would obviously choose the one with slack and not the critical one, as that would impact the end date of our project. The way that the leveling feature works is quite intelligent, and if it had to prioritize which of the parallel overallocated activities to delay, it would delay the one which impacts the schedule the least. Another thing you will see on the leveling Gantt are bars similar to baselines. These gray bars allow you to compare the before and after of your leveling operation. The leveling functionality resides on the resource ribbon within the level group. The next overallocation button is similar to scroll to task, but instead it snaps to reveal all the overallocations from beginning to end in the time phase portion of the view. There is level resource that allows you to select specific resources to level. Why would you want to do this? Ultimately, in a leveled project, our limited resources form a critical chain of activities that drive the end date of our projects. These resources represent our bottlenecks. By addressing our bottlenecks, we can achieve our critical path, which is shorter in duration and based on logical dependencies as opposed to resource dependencies. Our bottlenecks are typically an individual or team of individuals, and they can vary from phase to phase in a project. The culprits or bottlenecks are often known or evident in an organization. So with a level resource functionality, you can isolate and focus on the resource or group of resources to focus the leveling feature on. Doing so will then reveal the next level or group of bottlenecks, if any. By addressing and reducing bottlenecks, organizations will be able to optimize their operations, therefore reducing their time to market, etc. Now, isn't that what we want and seek? Level All launches the leveling operation, and Clear Leveling undoes it. But before we level, we must configure how we want leveling to work. We do this with Leveling Options. This window has 3 sections. In the Leveling Calculations section, set this option to Manual so that we are the masters of our destiny. Otherwise, overallocations will be prevented and leveling will be done on the fly and perhaps off the screen without even our awareness. Look for overallocations. I set this to week by week or even month by month sometimes. Why? This has to do with the level of granularity or the threshold that Microsoft will use in assessing if we have an overallocation situation. Example, if we have 2 5-day tasks running in parallel and the same resources assigned at 75% on each, given a 40-hour capacity per week for that resource, how many days should it take our resource to complete both these tasks? Answer, 1 work week and a half. But if you leave the default day by day, it will schedule these 2 tasks to complete after 10 working days. Microsoft Project during leveling will not change the assignment units that you allocate on a task, and rightfully so. So don't expect a 75% units assignment to be converted by a leveling operation into 25% to make it fit. Day by day means that we cannot have more than 8 hours per day assigned for this particular resource. As such, a 1-day leveling delay will be applied to the task with the least priority and/or slack, and as such will move the start of the assigned work to the next day. And it repeats this process by looking at each and every day, looking for overallocations and delaying them accordingly. In this scenario, we end up with a 5 working day leveling delay. On a week-by-week basis, however, our threshold for allocations is 40 hours by week. So in this scenario, the task with the least priority and/or slack will be delayed by 30 hours to accommodate the task with the higher priority or least slack, and thus leave the other tasks room to perform 10 hours in week 1 to bring us to our 40-hour availability threshold for that first week, and the remaining 20 hours in week 2. This gives us a more realistic finish date in which to perform these 2 tasks. Note, leveling will always take into account the resource's non-availability and calendar exceptions. Note that when you change look for overallocations, the indicators that flag overallocations, that is, the resources displayed in red or tasks with the red body in the indicators column, change accordingly given that the threshold for what is considered overallocated changes. That is, you may be overallocated on a day-by-day basis, but not on a week-by-week or month-by-month basis for that matter. For my demonstration, though, I will use day by day given that all my resource assignments are set at 100%. That is, 1 full-time equivalent. The notion that schedules in PPM are models of our real-life projects that help us be better organized and allow us to improve communications with regards to our intentions and performance towards our stakeholders goes a long way in meeting our projects and overall portfolio commitments. The leveling tool will respect this and adhere to the thresholds you set and provide you with a schedule that you can review and adjust accordingly. Clear leveling delay values before leveling. Typically, this is selected, so it clears a leveling delay field and resets it to 0. But at times, you may want to perform multiple leveling operations in order to fine-tune or tweak your leveling outcome, at which point, unselect it. Note, leveling will only operate on remaining work. Actual work performed will not be affected. In the second section, leveling range, here I'll likely select the second option. Depending if the project has started or not, I'll set the leveling to start a few days out as to give me time to communicate any changes in ongoing assignments. And we only need to go out 3 to 4 months into the future, because beyond that we'll either still have generic resources assigned and or the network of dependencies will cause downstream tasks to slip anyways. A 3 to 4 month leveling range versus leveling an entire project will provide for a quicker leveling operation turnaround time. The resource type work is set to can level by default, but if you're like me and set your generic resources to max units equals 0, then those resources should have their resource can level fields set to no, so that they can be skipped for leveling. Note, material and cost resources are not affected by leveling. In the third section, we configure how we go about resolving over allocations. Leveling order, here we'll want to change the default to priority and standard, so we can leverage our priority settings. Example, between projects, or to break ties when tasks are competing for resources that have the same amount of total slack and or free slack. Leveling within available slack allows you to force the leveling operation to respect your critical path. That's the upside. The downside is that it may not resolve all of your over allocations. But there's nothing to lose and everything to gain. So try it and see what corrective actions you need to take to achieve such a scenario. Leveling assignments can adjust individual assignments on a task. This determines if tasks that have more than 2 resources assigned permits leveling to delay assignments such that they may no longer be working side by side on the same task. Understand that this is a global setting, and all that this means here is that we want to leverage this feature. But here's the clincher. At the task level, there's the level assignments field where you can specify which tasks you want assigned team members to work in unison on, or if not, necessary to work in parallel as long as they perform the work allocated to them. We will see examples of all these settings in a moment. The next option, leveling can create splits in remaining work. We give the leveling tool permission, in this case, to interrupt tasks. That is, to split tasks when they have a lower priority or more slack than other tasks when competing for the same resource. Again, this is a global permission, and as such, just like the previous option, in order to effectively leverage this feature, we can specify on a task-by-task basis the tasks that can be split, if necessary, due to leveling, by using the task level leveling can split field. Most people don't know or realize the existence of these task level fields. If you're like me, in an enterprise environment, I make use of the PPM solution booking types and the resource engagement features, so I typically ignore proposed bookings in my leveling operations. For more on the resource engagement features of PPM, please review my video on the subject. Level manually scheduled tasks. This I ignore, and I do not select given that I mostly work with automatically scheduled tasks, which allows me to leverage the full potential of Microsoft Project's scheduling engine. Now, I'm done configuring. I will click OK and simply go back to my project file, where I have set up several before and after leveling scenarios to demonstrate to you the various settings we have just reviewed. Note, we can click Leveling All to proceed with leveling from here from the ribbon. Instead, for my demonstration, I will show you the use of the level selection to isolate the tasks I want leveled. The priority field's default is 500 with a range of 0 to 1000, with 1,000 being the highest in terms of priority and off limits to leveling. In this first scenario, we have tasks competing for resource 1. All but one tasks have 1,000 as their priority, so the task with 500 will give way and be delayed by the leveling operation. Notice the splits after leveling. In this next one, I have set the leveling can split to no, so no splits are created. Instead here, the last task is delayed until it can be executed uninterrupted. Now, in these following scenarios, we are dealing with multiple resources. Here again, we have set the priority to 1,000 to isolate the effects of leveling onto the fourth and last task, which has the default priority of 500. See the resulting leveling operation where leveling can split is set, and leveling which works on assignments with multiple resources set to yes as well. In this next one, we'll leave leveling can split set to yes and change leveling assignments to no. In this next scenario, we'll do the reverse. Leveling can split is set to no and leveling assignment is set to yes. Do you see how you can leverage these fields to help you control the leveling operation now? In this one, leveling can split and leveling assignments are both set to no. So we get to keep the tasks team working together and without splits. And last but not least, in this scenario, I want to highlight that if a task is set to fixed duration, leveling assignments is set to no by default and cannot be changed because by definition, it would otherwise compromise the fixed duration task type that is set. Well, that's it, folks. I hope this video has provided you with new insights into leveling and how we can harness its potential. Thanks for watching, and please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or would like to arrange some training sessions for you and your team, or if you're thinking about introducing PPM into your organization or simply want help in optimizing its use. PMC is also qualified to help you with your program office needs, so please consider us if that's the case. Bye for now.